Hi there, welcome back to the National ADHD Solutions Summit. And for our next guest, I'm very excited to introduce you guys to Erin Koerselman. Some of you probably know her already, but for those who don't, I'm introducing you. And she's from Honestly ADHD and some other work that she does online with parents. And so she's going to share with us today a lot about how she works and helps coach parents to be more coach-like with their kiddos so they can have success in the home. But I do want to start by having you tell us a little bit about you and kind of like your story of how you got to be doing what you're doing these days, and then tell us what you do these days, probably better than I just did.
No, you did a great job. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of join this group of amazing people who are all talking about alternative solutions to ADHD. It's wonderful. So thank you. I appreciate you taking the time and including me. My journey, like you said, I am an ADHD parenting coach, which means I work almost exclusively with parents. Sometimes when we've got teenagers involved, or preteens, we bring them into the mix as well. But I am a parenting coach because in my own journey with kids, raising my own children with ADHD or child with ADHD, I found out that it was parents that really had the least amount of support of anybody. Everybody's focused on the child and, how can we help this child, get better at XYZ? And you'd leave appointments and the parent was still like, but I don't know how to put this child to bed, or I don't know how to manage it when they're disrespectful to me, or I don't even know how to get them to eat dinner at the dinner table. What do I do to help my child? So I'll back up a minute. I actually was a lawyer. I have a psychology degree, and then I went on to law school. So I was a lawyer for about 13 years in the corporate world, and then I moved into kind of human resources, and I did a lot of executive coaching, that kind of thing. So that kind of brought in my coach angle. So I had this, like a lot of moms and dads, had a career, and then I had a kiddo with ADHD who really needed me at home. And we kind of went into a crisis mode, I would say, where a lot of parents kind of feel that negative momentum and that spiraling out of control, one bad thing after another, school's really struggling, home struggling, everything. So I ended up leaving my job. And at that time, we were searching for all sorts of solutions. We were OT, therapists, doctors, meds, no meds, supplements, diet. We were like everything. And nothing really was sticking. And I had someone say to me that I should go visit this woman here in town where I live, and she was a parenting coach. And I was like, I don't know what a parenting coach is, but I don't care. If she helps me, I will go. And in that moment when I walked in her office, I'll always remember that moment, because it was a moment when I was like, oh my gosh, this woman is going to actually help me. And that was the big shift of for me, because her practice was in part working with my child, but in major part helping me do what she did in the office in her house, or in my own house with my child. So taking skills that I could use home, which was like the biggest relief ever. And so that just gradually brought me to where I am today. I just saw, wow, if I couldn't figure this out, there's a lot of moms and dads out there just like me. And so it's just kind of gone this path ever since. So now that's what I do. My practice is 100% online, though, all virtual. I have a site called the Honestly ADHD Parenting Academy.com. And there I do one-on-one coaching, so all virtual. I offer a book club, and it's called the Book Club Coaching Circle. So we actually pick up a book. The last book we're just finishing up was Mindful Parenting for ADHD by Dr. Burton. And we go through that book, and then we get on, and it's kind of like part group coaching, part parent support group, and part book club, I call it. And then right now we're actually in enrollment for what is my 6-month program called the Transformational ADHD Parenting Program. And that is kind of a comprehensive 6-month program. So that's what I do today, is one-on-one coaching and some group programs.
Gotcha. So, gosh, I had a couple questions come to mind. So So you're doing online virtual coaching with parents. Seems like some group definitely is a sort of a focus. Do you find that there are like specific themes that you see with most parents, and is that why sort of that sort of online course, online group setting works well for them?
Yeah, so online works well for a lot of reasons. I think that for those of you watching can probably understand. Um, Parents who are raising special needs kids, ADHD, whatever, like, we are running from morning to night. There are appointments all over the place. You know, you're trying to get your kids here and there. And oftentimes just the commute, the trying to find appointment times, all of that stuff is just way too difficult. And so I like the online format because just like you and I are here, I can see you, I can talk to you, we can have the same engagement as in person, but it is so much easier. You know, there's no commute to it. It's really simple to make an appointment, those kinds of things. And so, yes, one of the themes is we're all super crazy busy. The other theme is that I find, it was a surprise to me when I started this practice, but I find that parents who are raising kids with ADHD feel very misunderstood and very isolated. And so when I first started my practice, I thought I was going to be talking one-on-one to parents all day. And I do love to do that. But the joy that I get and the gratification I get when I bring parents together into a group setting, even though it's virtual, and they don't have to explain why their kid is pulled down their pants today in first grade. You know, no parent is going to judge them as a bad parent, in the group anyway, for a child who uses naughty language in Target. You know, there's just a common understanding and then like an instantaneous connection. And so I find myself gravitating toward groups more and facilitating that connection because, as we all know, we are depleting ourselves of when we're raising kids and pouring ourselves into them like this, we deplete ourselves of a lot of our own self-care, and we need it. And human connection is part of that. So I try to facilitate that as much as I can through those group settings.
Yeah, that makes some good sense. So when you went to this first parenting coach that you said kind of sparked your interest in that, what were the things that she had you do, or what things worked well for you that made such a difference that kind of sent you in this direction?
Yeah, so the first thing that she really did, and it's what I then in turn do as well, is she really taught me about how ADHD is impacting my child's brain and impacting his behavior. So very, really diving into what is ADHD, what are executive functions, how would it feel to be sitting in my child's brain, for example, when impulse control, when my poor impulse control makes me say everything that comes to mind, right? So, I think a thought and I just automatically say it. So many of our kids have that problem. And at first you want to like kind of reprimand that behavior, but if you are able to understand how their brain's working and sit in their shoes, you say, oh, having a consequence on the back end isn't going to help teach them how to control that impulse to say whatever's on their mind, right? So it really helped me focus more on skill building and less on ineffective consequences, and if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
But she would give me things like, let's try a specific a positive reward system or something. And I'm offering my favorite one to your audience as a freebie on the site, and I know you'll mention that in a little bit. But positive reward systems are really difficult to implement. And she gave me one tip that many of your readers may not know that changed my positive reward systems forever. And that tip is, so, when you're giving out positive rewards, a lot of times what parents do is a child will have earned, let's say, 5 tallies towards something that they're working toward. And when that child later gets in trouble, sometimes parents will take away all their tallies as a consequence. And it undermines the whole reward. So it was something or the whole system. It was something so simple as having someone say, oh, that's how you're sabotaging this. Don't take away those rewards. I'm just using that as an example. But And just having someone help tweak those little things of small nuances to help you help your interventions become more successful, if that makes sense.
Totally. Totally. That makes a lot of sense. It's like when you're a parent, of any kid, no matter how their brain works, you're kind of on your own to a lot of degree. You feel like
Totally.
that often. And then what you're saying about what you've experienced in your, building your practice, that a lot of the parents feel isolated, which I definitely hear a lot, that and you see it on social media and all this stuff, people will be sharing about their experiences, and then someone will jump on there and be like, it's just bad parenting, and it's like, that type of thing. Or yeah, when your kid's having a meltdown in the, Target and everyone's just staring at you like you should just, whatever, get control of your kid. So it's like having somebody actually, witness you as a parent and then be able to look sort of from the outside and say, oh, well, here's what I see that you're trying to accomplish, and here's how that's actually going to be more effective. So that's really cool. I mean, definitely a needed service. Both of those things, that community and having a space for parents to be with other people that they understand, to understand them and won't judge them, but then also that direction. That's really cool. So definitely, and I know you had mentioned a lot of your work has to do, or some good portion of your work has to do with how the parent then communicates with the kid, like how that communication back and forth goes. So I'd love for you to give us some good insight into that, how you work with that, if you would.
Sure. So when I talk about communication, and I want to make sure, did everything's still working on your end, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like pushed a button and now you're gone for me, but I'm good. Okay.
You're good. No, I see both of us.
Okay, good. Hi. Perfect. Okay, I've got you back now. All right. So when I talk about communication with parents, so first of all, so communication in my view is one of the most fundamental underlying issues that we have between us and our kids is kind of hiccups and little missteps in communication that start to like wear away on our children's trust of us and on ours of them too, right? And so the first thing I do when I talk to parents about communication, because what parents really want a lot is they will say like, what can I say to my child to get them do X, Y, Z? Or what can I say to change this thing? And the first thing that I really work on with parents is just to not say anything. Stop saying. Just no more saying. And we have to start thinking about listening. Because
you're not going to give us the magic thing you say to your kid to make them do what you want them to do?
I'm sorry, I can't write that book. Like that's not a book that I write. And it's not really one that I believe in, because the very first thing you have to do, if anybody says this is what you say, I'm like, eh. But the very first thing you have to do is really listen, and not listen to reply, but listen to understand. Listen to understand your child's point of view. I think sometimes we get kind of mixed up in, well, if I listen to understand, that means I must be listening to agree with them. And that is not true. But really trying to listen to understand what they're going through, so that you have that perspective, and repeating back to them what you've heard to make sure you've understood it correctly. That's kind of one of my first techniques, is just being sure that you repeat it. So if I understand you right, Johnny, this is what I heard you say happened at gym, without putting a judgment on it or a kind of what, Dr. Green calls, adult filter on it. So that's kind of that first thing, is just listening to understand. Sometimes I talk about communication being like a game of ball, like you're playing ball back and forth. You're throwing the ball back and forth. And if you don't listen to understand first, you don't really know what kind of ball you're playing with. Am I playing with a wiffle ball? Is my child throwing a big, like, heavy exercise ball at me? Do I have a football coming? Like, what kind of game are we playing here? What kind of mood is this child in? What kind of message are they trying to send me? So that's kind of the first thing, is really understand, what game am I playing here with my child, to understand what's happening, just to listen to understand. The second thing would be to, let me back up for a second. The second one comes with our body language. So, and I say that because about 7% of our communication is the words we say. and which is really scary when you think about social media, because all they get are the words they say. 30 some more percent of it, right? My numbers are off. I don't have them in front of me, but 30 some more percent of it are like our tone and intonation and other parts of our vocal kind of experience. And then the last over 50% of our communication is our body language. So we can say a lot to our children, even when we're trying to listen to them or when we're trying to disengage from them or whatever parents want to say that we're trying to do. We can say a lot in our body language. One of my favorite stories is I had two clients, or a client, husband and wife, and they had a child who was really volatile, would do a lot of meltdowns and temper tantrums. And after the temper tantrum, the child would say, you are being so mean to me. You are always so mean to me when I'm, having a temper tantrum. And they said, well, we're so confused because all we're trying to do is disengage with the child. Like, we just aren't even engaging. And so I talked to them about listening to understand. We talked about a lot of these other, things that, pieces of communication. And they came back to me 2 weeks later, and the husband said, I have to tell you, we had this huge aha moment. Because when his wife was trying to disengage out of a temper tantrum that their child was having, he's like, she wasn't disengaging at all. Her body language was conveying to this child, even though she was quiet and walked out of the room, her body language was conveying disgust and anger and frustration and everything else. And he's like, when I tried to put myself in my child's shoes and watch that, I realized that we were communicating a lot. And so what you see a lot are parents, who will have their arms crossed while they're listening, or kind of eye roll or a huff or a sigh, or just that hurried kind of attitude. And it will sabotage your communication really fast when you're trying to listen. So those are the first two. It would be listening to reply, or listening to understand, not to reply, and then really watching your body language during communication. And then the third one really is always remembering that their behavior is some sort of communication. They may not know what they're communicating, but their behavior is a form of communicating to you something that's going on with them. A baby cries because they're hungry. You give your husband the silent treatment because you're angry about, whatever it is. But sometimes it's obvious, and sometimes it's less obvious. You may have a child who's acting out, because they are wanting to gain social approval, and that's how they think that they're going to gain it. And they may not always know what they're trying to communicate. But behavior, if we can think of behavior as communication, that it helps us listen better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. So I think of, like, I always try to put myself in the shoes of, the listener or the viewer of this. And so I try to imagine, what would they be asking? So I would think what I'd be asking you after that, among other things, is, so especially that last point, behavior is communication, and I get it. But what if I have no idea why my child is acting, doing the behaviors, like if they lie all the time, or if they act out at, public places, or whatever that is. How do you find that out? Or is that your job to try to investigate that? Or what do you do with it? Like, in terms of if you can't figure out what the communication is?
Sure. So sometimes it takes a little while, to figure it out. Sometimes, you have a child who doesn't want to talk to you, or maybe just doesn't have the tools to talk to you or tell you. One of the things I find is that parents will ask a lot, why? So they'll say, why, did you hit Johnny? Or why did you throw the temper tantrum? And most of the time a child's going to say, I don't know. I don't know. That doesn't help get you anywhere. So what I really teach parents to do is start asking the question, what? So, what were you thinking about when da-da-da-da-da? What happened right before you decided to, right before you walked into gym class and got in trouble, or whatever? Really understanding, another thought just came to my mind too, but really reframing those questions into trying to find out some more factual things that are going on in their mind, because when you ask them why, they just won't be able to tell you. So that's number one. starting to ask those what questions. What happened when? What were you thinking about when? And being sure that you're keeping your tone and your questions in a very open, non-judgmental way so that they don't become defensive. Well, what in the world were you thinking when is different than what were you thinking about when da-da-da. Those are two different frames. So two different approaches. So being really open so that they can stay non-defensive. And this sometimes is going to take time. A parent can change, their communication style, but their child's going to have to take a little while to catch up and get used to the fact that this is a different game that you're trying to play with them. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. Was that the other thing you thought of also, or did you want to have one more thing to say?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. And now that little thing slipped my mind. Usually I try to write it down. Yeah, I know it slipped my mind. If I think of it, I'll let you know.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure it was something good. So great. So listen, understand that, apply, and thinking of your story and the body language thing. So with that couple, or as an example, we're not going to be them. What about, I can imagine like that all sort of sounds good, but then if what my kid's doing is really making me upset, how do I, do I try to hide it? Or, how do I learn to not communicate that anger or disappointment or whatever it is with my body language?
Right. Well, number one is there's a lot of your question just now is that's a huge question. There's tons of different techniques that we could go into. One, I would say it takes a lot of practice. As you begin to learn more about ADHD and as you begin to practice these things with your children, some of these the temper flares, your own triggers, the things that you are like getting hooked onto, they become less and less because you just feel like you have more skills to handle them over time. But I'd say at the outset, so let's just say you're a parent who is just totally frustrated, and you're kind of getting hooked a lot. The first thing I would say is you don't necessarily have to hide your anger and your frustration with your children. I would definitely, you can just say it and be direct so that when your child hears your communication, they're not guessing. There's not a disconnect between what you're saying and what your body language is. They can learn to trust you. So you can say something like, I am so angry right now. I need to take a break. I need to take a step away because this is frustrating me. You could even say, I know you're not trying to frustrate me. But I am finding myself getting really frustrated. So I'm going to go, whatever. I'm going to go brush my teeth, or I'm going to go, up into my room for a little bit, and I'll come back down. We can figure this out later.
So can I just see if I'm getting it? Yeah. So it sounds like what you're saying, rather than, sort of where my question led, rather than trying to sort of change your experience so that you don't communicate a negative body language or something. What you really sound like you're saying is what you want to do is have what you're communicating verbally and your body language be the same, be in alignment. Like if you're actually frustrated, then to say it and not try to pretend like you're not, because that was the difficulty with that example you used. They were saying they were disengaging, but they really weren't, because it was out of alignment with each other, what they were doing behaviorally or saying and what their body was communicating.
Exactly. You just said it so much better than I was explaining it, but that is exactly right. Because when what you're saying is different than what your body language is conveying, your child doesn't know what to trust. And so you just want to have authentic communication with your child. When I'm frustrated, I'll tell you I'm frustrated and we'll deal with that. When I'm not, we won't be. And my goal is to help parents and kids develop a relationship, or parents develop a relationship with their kids that brings them to frustration less often too. So over time, but
right. Yeah. So that sounds great. As a parent of three young kids. So what kind of feedback do you get, doing this kind of work with parents? You mentioned that one couple's aha, but what's some of the other experiences you have or sort of transformation you see with people?
Yeah. So, if you go to the Academy site, so it's honestly parentingacademy.com, and then you go to /testimonials. I've got pages of testimonials in there. I think the common, the name of my business is honestly ADHD for a reason. I'm an extremely transparent person, but I'm also very honest. And so I would never tell you that someone came to work with me and all of a sudden all their problems went away, because that's not really what it's about. So raising these kids is really difficult. And I would say the common theme among my clients is that they feel more equipped. They feel more confident in their own parenting. I think that's one of the things that happens when those of us raising kids with ADHD try one thing and it doesn't work. And we all know that sometimes we have to try things again and again and again before they kind of stick with our child. But when we're being judged constantly by the world outside, it's hard to stick with that when it's not having the impact you want it to have as quickly as you have. So sometimes it's, I hear clients say, I finally feel more confident, in my own parenting, and that I can trust my judgment even when it doesn't look like it's making a huge difference right now in the moment. I know this is the right long-term strategy, for example. But so they're walking away, with a lot more confidence in their own parenting, also a lot more mindfulness and awareness of their own parenting strategy, how their experience is impacting their children's experience. My goal is really to help parents create an environment for their kids in which their kids can thrive, because a lot of the guests that you've had on so far, especially the nutritional guests and those kinds of things, we've created an environment from a food perspective, a schooling perspective, where it's playing to our kids' weaknesses. So really helping parents set up an environment where their children are, we're going to bring the best out of their kids is my goal. And that's, I think, the common theme.
Yeah, that's awesome. It makes me think of, just any skill that we're going to launch ourselves into, if you were going to go pick up playing guitar, right, or if I were, right. We would practice and we would go to somebody who could teach us or, learn about it. And we would expect that it would be a stepwise process before maybe if our goal was to be able to, get on stage and sing a song, we wouldn't expect to be able to do that right away. And so parenting obviously is no different, right? In a sense, like right. We don't just know just because we biologically can, have a kid, right? And right. So, and then based on the particular situation, right? Because your specialty then is helping people learn how to be effective parents and get what they want, or, in situations that are particular to, having kids with ADHD. So that's really cool. So, thanks for being out there and doing that. That's a great, service.
It's my pleasure, honestly. It's one that so many parents need. And, it's been really gratifying to be able to do the work. So, yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'm sure that lots of people watching will want to know how to find out more about you. I know you mentioned your website, the Parenting Academy website. How else, if they want to engage on that level, certainly go to that. We'll put the link below this. How else can they kind of keep up with you, social media, that type of stuff too?
Sure. So on Facebook, I have a Facebook page just at Honestly ADHD, super simple. And then I also run a parent support group on Facebook. We have about 30,000 people in there, so it's a good chance that some of your viewers are already in there. But if they're not, be sure to check that out. So that's just Honestly ADHD parent support group. That's a closed group in Facebook, so we do ask to make sure people are parents, and we moderate that group. And then, my email is always Erin at honestlyadhd.com. I'm happy to answer any private questions that people have about any of the services, those kinds of things.
Cool. And then also you mentioned free resources. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what, because I see you had a couple of them or three of them that you were
offering. Yeah. So I just created a quick little page for the viewers here. So it's at, let me make sure I say this right. So it's at Honestly.
We'll put the link below. I mean, you can say it, but we'll also put the link below, yeah.
Awesome.
It's a long address.
It is a long address. So I have 3 things on there. So one of them is my mini course for 5 strategies for ending homework battles tonight. And it's just a short video and an infographic. And I guess you get the slides as well, that go through the mini course. So it's just a video content. And it gives you things that you can implement right away to make sure that, homework hour, that kind of witching hour for so many of us, goes smoother than it has been. The next one is the Positively Puzzled reward system, which is the first reward system I ever picked up from my mentor. And I still use it. I use it with older kids. I use it with younger kids. I absolutely love it. You can adjust it to however, whatever age you have. And that is a short video tutorial and infographic. And then I just have a video series that you can get a weekly video all around my 7 principles for raising kids with ADHD. So, those are the 3 things. You can choose one or all or however many you want.
Awesome. So yeah, like I said, and I'll remind us that I'm going to put the links below. So to Erin's website, we'll put the Facebook link and then also the link specifically to get those resources for those of you that are interested. So, all right. Well, thanks for taking some of your time with us. I know you were saying before that's been kind of a crazy week. I know you're getting people set up in that 6-month course, so that can always be a big deal. So I appreciate you, carving out the time to share some of your brilliance with us.
Oh, thank you. You are welcome. Yeah, we've got 5 days of enrollment left, and it's been a crazy, crazy week. So, yeah. But thank you for having me on and your flexibility. And I've just been really honored to join the group.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.